The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello. It's so good to see you. Yes. Where are you?
I am in the mountains of Wyoming. There's a few right behind me, but they're literally all around me. So I'm really happy to be here. I love the new intro, by the way. That was the first time I've seen it, and what an experience. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you know what? I really like it. It was easy to put together because, again, it's so natural and it's just kind of go with the flow rather than trying to do it. Do you know?
Yeah.
It was easy and it flowed. It was very natural. And yeah, I much prefer it. But I also think that our audience is gaining a lot more now, having the unified collaboration of all the chatter that we have, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Chatter. I don't know that that's the right word, but we have a lot of medicines between us and a lot of wisdoms too, including ancestral wisdoms, of course. Yeah. I was thinking about that today, and when I saw your where you are right away, I could almost feel the mountains. And today's show, we're talking about grief. And we're talking about different battle strategies that can be employed to help us cope with grief. Because as we know, the older we get, the more loss we're going to experience. It is part of life. And unfortunately, getting stuck in a state of grief or any one of the states of grief can lend itself to dis-ease long-term, chronic disease, in that that grief will manifest physically and health and wellness will be sacrificed, and that is no way for the living to live.
No, nor would they want us to live that way. This is, I think, one of the beautiful teachings that does come from the mountain. I was just, it's like when you, this tears just like poured out of me when I finally saw them. We've been on the road for a while, and to finally see the mountains, I cried. But that's not the first time, nor will it be the last time that I cried over that visualization or that seeing that feeling. It's like a memory. It's something so old inside of me. And it's almost like when you see a cockroach, it's like, that they're not going to hurt you, but you see them and you're like, I see the mountains and I cry, and I had to pull over on the side of the highway, and I went to where the water was pouring off. It was like an entrance way to get up into the mountain, which is something I would do if I was alone, but having my son, he was more interested in playing Spider-Man and, getting him in there. So we did that. But what came over me in those private times of meditation was that we need to really be like the mountain, and that's what our loved ones would want for us, the ones that are here and the ones who have already passed, is that they would want us to stand tall and be strong, but also let it go. That mountain let so much go. Yes. Yes, let that shit go. It was it's so strong that it doesn't matter how much water goes. There was no fear. It's just a pure abundance. These are the the teachings that are so lost. It's so crazy too. Like,
these are the lessons. Like there is definitely a new awakening in the world. And you know, I hate saying that the world is blind and the world is so, I meet so, and so do you. We meet so many people that are waking up. And so these are some of the lessons that we can take. I mean, I go home, as you know, I went back to Penetang and around that bay. And it's the blood and bones of my ancestors run through that land and through those waters and through those trees. This is where the roots of my ancestral roots are. And when I feel like I'm stifling grief and I can feel it in my body, it's thick and it's heavy. And I don't want to unleash that on another human being, but I also don't want to stand in the shower and cry, because that's not enough of a relief. I find going down to the water, to where the rocks are being moved by the water, where those big boulders in Georgian Bay are, you know, tossing and shifting, and I can feel the heartbeat and the movement and the shift, and no second is the same as it once was, and no tomorrow is ever known until it's today, and you know, and all that stuff, and this is part of the price that we pay to hijack this corporeal form, if you will. Energy has hijacked this corporeal form for a brief period of time, or the corporeal form has hijacked captured the energy of the universe, however you want to put it. And I do know that a lot of grief, we all experience it very uniquely to ourselves. And so fkind in nature that space that comforts you. Like I'm looking at your mountains, and I just kind of want to reach through the camera and hug you right now.
Virtual hug for everybody. Get in here. Group hug.
Huge hug. Yes. You know, you must be able to feel the pulse, like you're saying, in these mountains. You're watching it. Just let it go. Just let it flush. Let it roll off you. That's just,
yeah. And those tears, like it felt so good. Like it was just uncontrollable, you know. And there's so many different lessons that Mama Nature shares with us. It's unbelievable. But another story that I want to share is, you were talking about you know, everybody handling grief a little bit different and meeting amazing people along the way, but also losing people. It's like there's always that transformation. When you're talking about where you were, like in our hometown, you know, those boulders shape like shifting and stuff. Not only are they changing their position, but they're transforming into sand at that time. You know, when one of the things that happened to me just today actually is we lose internet so often. It's definitely not a consistent thing, like in this lifestyle currently. So I stopped at a Walmart, and I'm like, well, while I'm here, I'm just gonna go get like a couple zinc tablets. It would just help with immunity or allergies or whatever. And while I'm looking at the brands, this man comes over. And he's like, you know, I have an app where you just scan stuff in, and it tells you if it's like good or bad, like if it's legit or if it's like going to actually kill you and just disguising itself as helpful. And we started talking. By the end, he was like, he's like, I need to be like at your knees for like the work that you're doing right now. It's such a synchronicity that we met. And I was like, honestly, the craziest part is that what brought me here is like the grief of my uncle. I was like, he was a medicine man too. I was like, he's the type of guy where you say you're in pain, he's gonna like smack you with some nettle leaves and you're gonna be better, you know. And he started laughing, but at the same time, that's why we were having that conversation. Me to keep him living on. You know, to share that story, because that inspired him to share more with his daughter, to share more. You know, it wasn't me. I was just a vessel, you know, like all that energy of those who have passed are all still living with us. They live through every single story, they live through every single breath, they live through every tear. You know, they're always there. It's always transformational.
Well, here's the thing: is energy. Yeah, I mean, energy. Let's speak scientifically for a second instead of spiritually. Scientifically speaking, you cannot create or destroy energy. Like it's part of the universe. It's part of the constant change and evolution of everything happening at all times. And for a brief period of time, this skin or body sac grows and decays and all the rest. But I mean, as it's growing, there is 10 volts, approximately 10 volts. So kind of like a 9-volt battery, but 10 volts of energy that's inside of this corporeal form, getting our brain, the neurons to fire, getting our muscles to twitch, sending the messages, keeping our organs going, keeping everything happening. Just because the machine breaks, the energy is not destroyed. It continues to exist. And so now it's just re-released into the environment or part of the universe or back into the ground or into I mean, I don't know, and neither does science at that point.
I'd like to share a couple things that theories that have been talked about by scientists, like Carl Jung, very much a scientist, but he was also spiritual to the point of saying that you don't need any actual dogma to be spiritual because there's enough of it around, you know. But another thing that was talked about amongst like a lot of these greats, like himself, Napoleon Hill, there's more names I'm sure that will come to me as we're having this discussion. But you know, these men would sit around and they would have conversations with other parts of themselves, either higher selves, or they call forth people who had already passed away, whose wisdom they wanted to harness. And this is a real thing, scientifically proven through photons. So that photonic energy, our energy as we pass, goes off into the atmosphere. Those energy particles are going to find the people who are closest to them. So if you welcome it, if you have an open heart, right? This is why God breaks our heart over and over and over and over again, so that it can stay open. And if we are open, those photons come to us. They're going to go to whoever was closest to those people. And so that energy then lives on through us, especially if we are allowing. And this doesn't just have to be with our loved ones, but maybe people who were our heroes or who we would want to mentor after. You know, this could be with anybody. Napoleon Hill did this with, you know, some of the presidents and, who else? Edison, like great inventors, you know, he was harnessing this energy to make of all the successors so that he could help regular people, you know, change our minds and become successful too. And on a more spiritual level, you know, the way that I see it, you know, working with herbs and medicine and like the earth, is that it's like a plant. You know, it grows up, it starts out, you know, like in the darkness, it has to struggle to reach the light, but when it does, it's able to grow those roots down, it's able to grow up. You know, a lot of that energy goes into the stems and the leaves, and then finally the flower, that full bloom, you know, the prime of life. But what happens after that? It starts to decay, it starts to die. But my favorite part about working in the garden is seed harvesting. And this is where everything that we put in, we get to harvest like 500 times. We're not talking about like doubling your investment here. We're talking about like such an abundance where it's like 500 times. And a lot of those seeds, like Uncle Jim's favorite flower, right? Dandelion. Where do they go? They fly everywhere. Those seeds are everywhere. They're going to grow through concrete. They are like, they don't care.
When it comes to grief, it's about leaving a legacy. And as long as part of every day of our life, we are having an effect, a positive effect, preferably on our community, on the social circles that we circle, as well as the ones that we are, the nucleus for. But being influential in a positive way to leave that legacy for those seeds, because yes, everything lives and dies, but we have the gift of spawn. I don't want to say spawn.
Yeah, just, it's like the air. It's like the breath. It's
but yeah, I think my point is, and so when our energy leaves this corporeal form, we leave behind all these memories. Papa Deval, someone we've recently lost. So you and I have experienced a significant amount of loss in less than 6 months. We have each lost
in 1 month. I lost 3 people, and you lost 2 of your very close family members.
Yeah, it
was within 30 days.
And a dearest friend, plus extended family members. You lost a dear friend. And this was all in a period. So all of that was in a period of 3 months, plus our scare with your brother, my son, with the traumatic back surgery. For the record, anybody listening or watching, he's doing fantastically. I guess he will still walk down that aisle.
Yeah, getting married in September, and we're all going to be there.
That's right. And so part of dealing with grief is acceptance. And I think that's one of the things we keep talking about. Accepting the fact that we are grieving and looking for comfort in nature. Where, when we're children, and we grieve, maybe we lost our toy, or we didn't get the blah, blah we wanted, or somebody said something mean at school, or, whatever it was, whatever we're grieving as a child, we look for comfort in our mother. We'll go to our mom for a hug, or to a parent, or, we go to someone for that hug, for that comfort. And I think when we grieve, that sadness tells us, go to Mother Nature, go to Earth, go to your roots, to your comfort zones, allow those fabulous memories. One of the things with neuro-linguistic programming is from the outside as the therapist, and you're working with someone who's grieving, often what is found, and I found it with myself, caught myself doing it, and was able to do that whole self-treatment thing, which was cool. But as soon as I realized I was holding on to the, he's not going to be here for the Lift Expo. He's not going to be here for ICC. And these are all things I appreciated with my brother. And it's not just the loss of the person, but it's the loss of all of everything. And
companionship.
Yes, and it's a change of lifestyle completely. And instead of holding on to those images, I do a swish treatment in which I put up a fantastic memory in which I did have of him at ICC. And I'm going to carry that with me because I'm going to hold him close. And that's what matters the most. And that's the energy that I want from the universe. That's the energy that I want surrounding me, surrounding this corporeal form for as long as it is in corporeal form. And I find that positive energy is so much stronger than negative energy, and it's uplifting. And so again, a tool to handle grief is to recognize that we don't need to hold on to the trauma. We're going to hold on to memories. We're in a very raw state. So let's pick.
And the memories are great.
Yes, let's pick the pictures we want.
Yeah. Instead of being so scared of oh my God, that's going to happen to me. Or how do I prevent that? It's if all that energy goes there, it's that's what the dominator culture has programmed us for. That's what the conditioning is for. But we're beyond that, right? That's why you guys are showing up here for this show. It's like that Monsters, Inc. movie. Yes! When they find out that laughter is more powerful than the fear. So that's what the memories is. That is the perfect, what do you call it, a swap or switch?
It's a swish. Yeah, it's a swish pattern, and that's literally what you do. So what you do is you take that image that just keeps coming back, and what you do is you desensitize it in the sense of you tone it down, you bring down the color, you phase out the color as much as you can, reduce the noise that's associated with it, and you grab a really good picture that is familiar, and you make that big and bright and loud and brilliant and wonderful in all the right ways, and very quickly swap those spaces, turn one into a postage stamp and the other one like it's right here in your face in the screen. And you know what? You do it over and over again, and after a while, you can't pull that yuck one up by choice. You can't bring it back because this other one has repatterned your brain.
Yeah, I like that, and I've needed it a bit myself too. One of the people I lost was an ex of mine. We always like stayed friends, you know. He had his life, I had mine, but we were both entrepreneurs, so you know, maybe we didn't work together, but that same fire like really, I think, helped us like feed off of each other, that like entrepreneurial energy, and we would push each other to succeed. And he was very successful when he passed, but I also you know, there was regret that came up, and so you know, I've been doing a similar technique around that, you know. And also not just that, but because it was so surprising, I mean, like all of these were like, it's always surprising, but you know, some people were still talking about like how it happened, like the specifics, and trying to get new data on that, and you know, for myself, I was like, I have to step back. I had to step back from the regret. I had to step back from like all the talk, the chatter, like how you mentioned before. You mentioned it in a positive way, but that's why you didn't want to use that word, right? Because there's this negative stigma to it as well. And you know, there was this chatter of like, you know, what had happened is he went fishing like he always did, but he was like on vacation doing it, and he just didn't come back. So, you know, one of the things that I kept so strong in my mind, as if that's just the data, then the data is he was doing what he loved. He was where he wanted to be, doing something that was so important to him. And so what we actually started, my best friend and I started sharing with the kids was what he was doing, just fishing in heaven. And, you know, just doing what he loves. And now he has that. And that visualization is what I use every single time that something triggers me into a feeling of regret or this like false memory, because that's what fear is. You know, it would be like a fear of missing out that I'd be getting. That's why the regret would be coming. So if fear is false evidence that appears real, there's no evidence of that. You know, if anything, you know, we're closer now than we ever were. And, you know, I can just say like, forgive me.
That's Ho'oponopono.
Yeah. Ho'oponopono.
What a powerful tool. And you know what? I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a break, get a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, let's talk about Ho'oponopono, because that's a very, very powerful tool that also helps me cope with grief that I had held on to and carried for 25 years before I finally let that shit go. And Ho'oponopono was an excellent tool to do just that. Okay, so on that note, my friends, we're going to cut to break, listen to a word from our sponsors, and when we return, that's what we're going to yip about. All right, here we go. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Honest, here we go.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out CBGtv.com. CBGtv broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at CBGtv.com.
Are you watching television on Roku, Fire, maybe an Apple TV or even Chromecast? If you are, then download the Boxcast app and search for CBGtv.
Babe, it's spring. Just saw a robin.
Awesome. Let's get our butts to Limestone City Hydroponics. They carry Happy Frog and Ocean Forest soils and lots of promos.
Limestone City Hydroponics carry everything you need to get veggies veggin', from organic fertilizer to cloth grow pots to, well, everything. Visit them today. Don't delay. In-store, free delivery, or curbside. We're here to help. 613-548-0420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
And we're back. Woohoo! You look like you changed positions there.
Yeah, I had to. I noticed that my battery was dying and my cord is just so big.
Right. No, I hear you. I think it's amazing what you're doing on the road. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But before the break, we were talking about Ho'oponopono. Yeah. And a lot of times, I think with sudden death, especially when people unexpectedly, massive cardiac, burst aneurysm, fishing expedition, where it's unexpected. I think there's a lot of guilt that we put upon ourselves as survivors that we don't have to. We don't have to do this. I know when I lost my mother at a very young age, I had a very young brain. And so I had very young interpretations of multiple things. And I had a lot of guilt. And Ho'oponopono was the practice that I was introduced to at one of the seminars I went to for my training. And it was an amazing tool. And I'm going to pull it up on the screen. We'll shift off to the side here. But it's a very, very powerful spiritual self-healing technique. Now, you've had some experience with this as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was introduced to it quite a long time ago, and I can't even remember when or why it came. But it didn't even really stick with me. Like when I first heard about it, like I didn't really know. But then it started showing up in my coaching practice where I'd be like, hey, I heard of something, ho'oponopono, something, like, I was like, it's just four statements that might help you. But then I realized, oh, I've said this a few times. I should probably go back through my notes and like reteach myself this, because it's showing up to be a value. Oftentimes our clients are mirrors for ourselves. And I'm so glad that I did, because those 4 simple little phrases change everything. It is total healing inside and out. And when you can learn how to do this, I think it brings on this connectedness, something that people are working with psychedelics for, right? That ego death. But Ho'oponopono is like one of those tools that can help you with that connectedness too.
Absolutely.
Help you
It is
through that ego death.
Yes, it's a wonderful healing technique. It's what it is an ancient Hawaiian forgiveness technique and a self-healing practice. Now, how it actually works, this page here, just ho'oponoponomiracle.com, and the technique is right here for anybody that isn't able to follow along with our talks. But basically, it's a process that frees the self from burden, and it allows you to become again what it is, which is what it was, a reflection of love and light, which is everything that you are as a human being. And we accept that we are the total sum of all our past thoughts and feelings, our words and our deeds, that our present life and decision making is colored by memories from the past. Ultimately, we begin to see how the Ho'opono technique can actually change our entire life. And now you say, you use the 4 fundamental questions, which I'm trying to get to here.
They're phrases. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Yes. Yes. And here it is. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now, there's a whole lot of other cleaning tools and techniques which can be incorporated. So as you go through, because sometimes you need to do this a few times. And as I say that, I remember when I was, when I first introduced this, I really thought, because we imagined it using the cinema technique in NLP, where we sit in the theater and we open up the stage curtains and we imagine the people that we are carrying the guilt for, that we think we are carrying the guilt for, or the people that we feel we need to forgive or we need to have forgiveness from. And we pull them onto the stage in the stage of our minds. And I remember really thinking that I would pull very specific. Now, keeping in mind that I had some level of hypnotic trance as well, because this is all part of the training, and NLP really complements hypnotic therapy. So working all of these pieces together, I really, in my mind, was set and determined that this is who I was calling on the stage of my mind, so that I could forgive them and accept forgiveness from them. And our minds, our subconscious, are amazing things in that those people did not show up at all. In fact, not in that session, but rather the doctors from my healing process, when I was physically under the haze of pharmaceutical treatment and stuck in a wheelchair and a hospital bed because of the sedation and the secondary damage from these pharmaceuticals. all of that being said, it surprised me a lot that I would be forgiving my doctors and the surgeons, and but I did, and it really released me from that whole sickness. It was almost like a little black shadow floated away, And grief can be a lot like that. And when our lives change, when we suddenly become ill, we carry grief because we have lost the person that we once were. That person will never be again. So to become newly disabled from something like a car accident or any of these sorts of things, there's a lot of grief that's associated with that as well. Or to be diagnosed with a new disease, with a disease that is going to change the course, to be diagnosed with cancer, to be diagnosed with an autoimmune deficiency condition. There's a lot of grief that's associated with that because we're saying goodbye to the person we once were. And learning techniques to cope with that type of grief is
I have a question for you, and that's if you could bring up the stages of grief so that we could go through each of them, because there's a lot that I'd like to say on this as I'm listening to you, but it might be better to kind of go in order because each one has its thing, and we can go through these stages. And it may take 25 years like you for your mom. I stayed drunk for a decade after losing my dad. I don't remember even being sober. I remember a few days saying I'm not going to drink again. But that would last until the next night. So, it is true. You lose yourself in sickness and sometimes that's mental sickness. Sometimes that's physical sickness. The body keeps a score in different ways. And
when we talk about ancestral wisdoms here, we can refer to the native holistic or the native natural medicines, and the belief in in the Meduawin of the Medicine Society is that you do not heal or cure the condition. What you heal, you help. It's a synchronized relationship between the healer and the patient for mind, body, spirit, all emotional. All of the directions are addressed. All of the whole being is addressed in health and wellness and in healing the patient, compared to Western medicine, which is very clinical, data driven, and it's
no, it's not data driven. It is because the data doesn't align. The data doesn't align with the truth. So it's not data driven. It is money driven. Follow the money.
Okay, and I suppose what I mean by data-driven is the doctor or scientist will say my records indicate 72% of people recover using or have a quality of life using this pharmaceutical, and that's the data that they're using. So that I'm not going to, yes, the healthcare industry is absolutely economically driven. There's no question in mine or most people's minds about that for sure. But what I mean is native traditional healing practice is,
and there are good ones out there, and it's this connectedness, like you're saying, like take the whole.
Yes.
It's like taking parts of a plant. That's one of the reasons why I'm asking if we can bring up those stages of grief, because otherwise we're just picking and choosing parts that are relevant to us currently, but really there's this whole, and grief is all these parts as a whole. And part of that, the reason why my mind even came to this was because at first there was like denial with the doctors,
which is number one.
Yeah. Yes. And then And then there was sadness and anger, and eventually you got
bargaining.
to the acceptance. Yeah, bargaining. Oh my God. Yeah, that's one of my go-tos. I try not to stay there long. I catch myself when I'm doing it, and it's funny, the things I'll bargain. Like, it's not how you'd expect. That unconscious mind, that default mode network is so programmed by our ancestors and by the deep state conditioning.
Right. So the very first is denial. The very first stage, there are 5 stages of grief, and not necessarily, you don't necessarily go through them in a particular order, though there is somewhat of a larger percentage that goes through them in this order, which is the denial and anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Now, the interesting thing is there is no beginning or end to this, and you could go from denial to bargaining to anger and back to denial again before you hit depression or acceptance. And just when you think you got acceptance, you're back to bargaining or anger or something else.
True story.
What's that?
True story.
Mm-hmm.
We should hashtag true story, bro, like after this.
So one of the early stages, of course, grieving process is denial. And the reason why is because it's the way our brain helps us to minimize the overwhelming pain of loss, obviously, right? When we process the reality of our loss, we're also trying to survive emotional pain. It can be hard to believe that we lost an important person in our lives, and especially when we may have just spoken with them the previous week or the previous day. Yep.
And that was the case for all 3 that passed away in my life. I spoke with them all right before.
Right. Now, I mean, that being said, there's also the beauty. I mean, I look at the way Papa passed, my grandfather, your great grandfather. He was in his 98th year. He was ready. It was peaceful, and the family, he was surrounded by family on a regular basis.
That's what you can ask for. Die in your sleep. You're loved.
Yes. Yes.
Some people go out screaming. Some people go out in pain. Some people go out scared. And that is the worst one, when you go out scared. The best case, because that's when the devil will catch you. But the best way to go out would be in your sleep. Honestly. Or sex. In the blue zones, that's how they go. That's like, the blue zones are the healthiest people on the planet, live the longest on the planet. And you can look this stuff up to figure out like how to fit in the blue zones. But one thing that they have in common, other than living to like 120 and still being happy and healthy and like walking normal, even working out and going to church and whatever else, is that they die in their sleep.
There.
I mean, or sex.
Okay.
But that's not the case.
That's how to die. Let's go on with how, for the rest of us that are living, are going to cope with your death.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, like, what I want to go to is like how to deal with the denial, and for me, that is by sifting through. I know you're saying like data with the negative way, but this is one of those moments where, for me, I really do have to deal with the data and leave the drama. I have to separate like the emotion, the this, the that, with what actually happened, so that my mind can be in the game and I can filter through the emotions. That's my process.
That is actually the purpose of that stage of grief, is when you're in denial, what your brain is attempting to do is to slow down the process, to take you through the processes or the feelings and the emotions one slow step at a time, rather than risk the potential of overwhelming you with your emotions, which can cause some pretty serious fracturing, right? So denial is not only an attempt to pretend that the loss does not exist in some ways, but we're also trying to absorb and understand exactly what is happening to us. And so in a state of hypnosis, or now when I say in a state of hypnosis, that's a very intentional trance state, because all day long, we are in a state of hypnosis. We are in different trances all day long. When we're driving our car, we're in a trance because we're not paying attention to exactly the angle of our foot and how many times we check the side mirrors or the rear view mirror while we're driving. Are we exactly 30 feet from the car in front of us? And how far away am I from? We're not translating all that. We become accustomed to it. It's a natural thing. We are in a driving trance. So that all of these things are just happening automatically. And that's one of the great things about hypnosis. Once your brain learns how to do something, and it's really easy and effortless when you learn that in a state of hypnosis, when you learn new programming. So we're in different states and trances. While you're in that state, and when someone is suffering from denial, one of the things to do is to actually imagine and pretend during 3 minutes of meditation that you are going through each and every step in a very slow way until your brain is so bored it just can't care any. You see what I'm doing there?
Like that sloth from Zootopia.
Yes, exactly. And what you want to do is you just want to bring yourself right down. You're going to give your brain everything it wants and then some. You're going to give it so much of that slowdown that your body's going to say, okay, enough of this, and you're fed up with it. And that's how a lot of phobias are cured, is you just get fed up. You get fed up with having to climb the stairs because you're terrified of elevators. If you're terrified of elevators, give me 3 hours of your time. I'll get you over it. You know, now if your elevator issue, anyway, back to grief, back to denial. So in denial, recognizing what it is and recognizing the value of denial so that you don't, one of the reasons our brain does it is to protect us, to slow things down so that we can assess it one step at a time. And
one day at a time, one thing at a time.
Exactly. And not become overwhelmed by just, you know, a wave of emotions, you know,
or victimizing yourself because the future can't be predictable. You know, exactly. That's like another one. Like, let go of that idea, because you can be responsible. Just be responsible in the moment. You were never able to control the future, but you know, that's like the ego dissolution and that connectedness. Like, those are the rewards that kind of come from it when we can move beyond.
Absolutely. We're going to move ahead quite quickly here because, as per usual, you and I really can chat, which is wonderful. I think this is great. So, but one of the next things is anger. And we all know that getting angry, it's one of the very first things that we feel because it's such a powerful emotion. And when emotions are starting to be released in a tidal wave, this is one of the very first ones to escape. It's kind of leading the pack of the rest of the emotions. And that's anger.
Yeah. So anger for me, like, my go-to is a book called Touching Spirit Bear. I highly just recommend that. But like, in short, what I do when it comes to anger is I get outside. There's like these sacred rage rituals that you can do. I don't think we see anger as such a beautiful thing as it really is. And there's really two ways that you could be angry. One is that you're angry and covering up the sadness, or that you're sad covering up the anger. But when we can do these like sacred rage rituals, essentially what you'd be doing is like going into the woods, grabbing a stick and just banging the ground, or stomping up and down like a little child and screaming, ah! Get it all out of you. That is my go-to, is these sacred rage rituals, because Mama Nature knows what to do with that energy. Your family won't. Your loved ones won't. So the sacred rage rituals or that book.
Yes. And I run to my Mother Earth, and I needed her heartbeat because I just wanted to scream. I wanted to scream so loudly into the core of the earth. I just wanted to yell. I found a drum. Long story short, those are our 4 directions. But I began, and I found the music cope and deal with my anger. I found a way to release it in a form of energy that blessed me.
And that's a form of energy that shapes the land. Like,
Yes.
that's what vibration does, reshapes it. We were just at the science center and they have that.
I also find to keep my cool, cannabis is an amazing tool, very, very effective at helping to control and afford us emotional regulation, or at least opportunity for emotional regulation. And sometimes, let's face it, you know what, you just say it anyway, but most of the time it does afford us the emotional regulation that we're looking for. One of the next things, of course, is bargaining, and we all do it. God, if you can heal this person, I'll turn my life around. I promise you'll be better. I'll be a better person if you just let this person leave. I'll never do this again. I'll never, all these sorts of things. And
or survivor's regret comes up in this one too.
Well, and I think, bargaining comes from a feeling of helplessness. It's because of a feeling of helplessness. It gives us this, when we begin to bargain, it kind of gives us a sense of control over something that obviously feels so completely out of control, right?
Yeah, but essentially we're still saying, like, we're not in control, we're asking. But even pleading sometimes, and that's what we have to be careful about too, is because we want to have responsibility. What happens if that negative energy really does want to give us a bargaining chip? Sure, I'll take it all away, just have alcohol. Or this there's a movie called Wild, Reese Witherspoon did it. There's also it's based off of the book, which my brother got me because it reminded him of me at the time. And in some ways it's true. But that girl, she lost her mom, and she ended up on heroin, saying, I'm never going to shoot it, until that time that she shot it. And then eventually she ended up being one of the first women to go across state backpacking. So, yeah. There are these bargaining chips, and sometimes the devil will come in and negotiate with us.
The point is we have to have tools. Obviously, these are things that everybody experiences, and we understand the bargaining and where it comes from. And I think understanding where it comes from and recognizing it is the first step in having a defensive battle strategy against it. That feeling of helplessness, when we start to begin that bargaining process, recognize, stop, take those 3 deep breaths and look for all the tools that you have inside of you. Take those 3 seconds to breathe deeply and find your resources. Look inside of you to say, you know what? I have the resources to cope with something that is part of living life. This is a price.
We do if we can take responsibility.
Absolutely. So,
but if we can't, if your default mode network is have a drink, or is run away, or is get violent, or whatever, this is where mushrooms comes in, because it can kind of constrict the brain to that area of the default mode network where we slip into these crazy patterns, and instead can be like you on the drum, reshaping the entire world.
Okay, so mushrooms are a really good thing if you're battling with that whole bargaining feeling of helplessness type thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
it would help for probably a lot of these phases, but specifically this one, because this one is about being vulnerable and taking responsibility and victim and like all kinds of the shadow.
Right.
This one is the shadow.
That probably brings us to the 5th stage of grief, which is finally acceptance. And usually when we come to the stage of acceptance, it's not that we no longer feel the pain of the loss or anything like that. But the thing is we're actually we're no longer we're not resisting the reality of our situation. We're not struggling, trying to make it something different than it is. It's the sadness and regret can still be very, very present in when you've reached the stage of acceptance, but the emotional survival tactics of denial and bargaining and anger are less likely to be present during that phase.
Yeah, and depression too, right? You know, that when that sadness comes on, sometimes it's covering up one of the other feelings,
right?
One of the other stages. Other times, that's the stage that we deny and we have to get into. Yeah.
Right. So now that being said, here we are. We've got just a couple of minutes left in which we can provide maximum tools for anybody dealing with grief, whether it's a personal grief of your own loss in relation to your health and wellness, or it's a grief of the loss of a loved one, the grief of the loss of your home or your community, your friends, your family, whatever your
part of yourself.
Or for, that's what I said, yes. Or for yourself, for the loss of, that's what I started with.
Your start is my end, and vice versa. We are the spiral, Mom.
Yes.
There is no beginning or end.
And so what are our tools that we can leave? Because we have less than 2 minutes to share some valuable tools.
Yeah, get to my website, elementalgrowth.org. You can normally book a call from there. Definitely when I'm back in Canada. I don't know how my schedule is looking right now. So otherwise, send me an email, ashley@elementalgrowth.org, and we can figure things out. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all that, Elemental Growth.
Okay, so this is Ashley's website here that I've got up on the screen that I'm sharing with you, and where she's talking about
that picture.
Yeah,
my 7-year-old took that.
There you go. So right here, get an appointment with Ashley, have a chit chat with her, and talk directly about the tools that she uses. Now, again, Ashley is very well experienced with the psychedelics. Myself, if you're looking at using some hypnosis or neuro-linguistic programming to help you, please book an appointment with me at my website, which is right here at www.greenirene.ca. There's hypnosis programs, fibro programs, just programs in general. Book a free discovery call with me, and we will figure out how I can help you to help you. That being said, as always, Ashley, I think this show is 100% better with the combination of our tools and resources. And I thank you, as always, so much for becoming the human being that you are. I think anybody out there suffering from grief right now knows, I think the most important thing is to know you're not alone. They're all different types of grief. You're not doing it wrong. Grief is a personal experience. You're going to flip around.
Don't let anybody tell you.
Exactly. Somebody tells you, oh, snap out of it. Ask them, well, how do I snap into it? Really turn the words around. Do not allow anybody to tell you how to be you. And
or like what I told the kids, I guess I'm going to call them my nieces for now, but one of them's getting bullied, and I'm like, remember when we were kids and we did talk to the hand because the face don't give a damn. That's right. What you do in those moments. Just know.
Yes.
You do you. You're beautiful. Do you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you very kindly. On that note, friends, we will see you back here next Friday on Battle Strategies here on the Pace Radio Network, broadcasting live on CBGtv.com. Be happy, get healthy, and stay strong.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
And there we have it. Thank you for tuning in today. If you have any questions directly for Ashley, you can email her at ashley@elementalgrowth.org. or you can reach Green Irene at info@greenirene.ca. Further information can be found on either of those websites. Notably, Battle Strategies airs live every week here on the Pace Radio Network, broadcasting on CBGtv.com, so you can stream it via any smart TV or phone. Production assets and content have been created by myself, Irene York, and the show is hosted by Ashley Vibes and Green Irene. On that note, be happy, get healthy, and stay strong.